PC gaming has always been the home for the bold, the weird, and the brutally ambitious. The kinds of RPGs that don't care about fitting in. They're made to give you freedom, systems, consequences, and stories that hit different because you carve them out yourself. Some are modern, some are ancient, some are downright unforgiving, but every single one still offers experiences you can't find anywhere else. If you've been wondering whether there are still PC-only RPGs worth discovering, not the obvious classics everyone knows, but the ones that should be in every PC master race library. Something that, as a console player, you might look forward to playing if you want to buy a Steam Deck or the upcoming Steam Machine. Let's dive into these PC-exclusive RPGs you've probably overlooked, but won't forget once you try them. If you end up liking the content, please subscribe for more, and I'd appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up and tell me what you think down below. Love to hear it. Exanima throws away the idea that combat should be flashy or cinematic. Instead, it gives you a physics simulation so real that every swing, stumble, and panic move becomes part of the story. You wake up alone in a silent underground ruin. No tutorials, no narrative hand-holding. Just a body, a weapon, and a creeping awareness that something down here is hunting you. It's not about perfect combos or button timing, but rather about momentum, weight, foot placement. Your weapon might get caught on a wall, or your stance might leave you open for a skull-cracking hit. When you land a strike, you feel it. When you miss, the ground meets your face, and enemies don't hesitate to finish the job. Every new piece of armor matters. Every torchlit room feels like a life-or-death puzzle. You can open a door carefully or risk alerting something you wish you hadn't. But this realism comes with harsh edges. There's a real learning curve. Early hours can feel frustrating until your brain rewires for physics-based combat. There's little dialogue, minimal direction, and atmosphere takes priority over plot. It's more like surviving an immersive sim experiment than playing a conventional RPG. Yet that's exactly its selling point. The dungeon hides mysteries and intelligent dangers, and you uncover everything through discovery. No quest markers or any spoon-fed lore. When you finally master the movement, block an attack perfectly, or survive against odds you had no right to, the victory feels earned on a primal level. Exanima isn't here to flatter you or hold your hand. It wants to test you and pull you deeper into the darkness if you hesitate. Few RPGs make survival this personal, and it's able to do that because it understands what it wants to be. Where the first Grimrock revived old-school dungeon crawlers through grid-based precision and claustrophobic tension, Legend of Grimrock 2 broke the walls open, literally. You're no longer trapped in just a dungeon. You're exploring a massive island filled with ruins, forests, crypts, beaches, and terrifying secrets that push you into a wider but more dangerous world. What makes it shine is its puzzle density. Almost every area hides brain teasers, hidden switches, language ciphers, trap layouts, and riddles that feel rewarding rather than cheap. It makes you feel smart, not frustrated, at least until you realize the puzzle solution was staring at you the whole time, and you just refuse to admit it. Combat remains grid-turn action where movement, timing, and formation positioning matter. Your party composition, tanks, rogues, alchemists, battle mages, determines whether you win with brute force or careful control. Variety is the biggest upgrade from the first game. More enemy types, more spells, more loot, more environments, more ways to die because you weren't paying attention to the sound of something snarling behind a wall. The game encourages non-linear exploration. See a locked door you can't open yet? Mark it, and come back later with newfound knowledge or equipment. The island hides layers you peel back piece by piece until you understand its sinister heart. Of course, there are barriers. If you're not into puzzles, the game can feel like a constant exam, and failing to map or take notes will leave you lost and frustrated. Some combat arenas can bottleneck you into repetitive tactics. And since story isn't the focus, narrative-driven players may find motivation in mechanics rather than plot beats. But for those who cherish exploration and mastery, This is one of the best first-person dungeon crawlers ever made. A game that respects your intelligence, challenges your timing, and turns discovery into its own reward.
Your father was a great warrior.
While many RPGs tell you the world responds to your choices, the Expeditions games actually does it. These games put you in a collapsing historical era where every relationship, every alliance, every law you bend changes the world around you. They're tactical, political, and brutally grounded. In Viking, you lead a fragile clan through betrayal and conflict, raiding new lands while trying to keep your people alive back home. Your companions judge your leadership constantly. Diplomacy might save your reputation or bury it under humiliating concessions. Battles are gritty chess matches where positioning and morale matter as much as steel. Then Rome takes the formula and expands it into empire-shaping scale. You become a legatus guiding armies across continents, while dealing with senators ready to destroy you for political points. You don't just complete quests, you govern territories, choose whether conquered lands thrive or burn, and walk a razor-thin line between justice and tyranny. But this ambition isn't without flaws. There's no AAA polish here. Animations are stiff, and storytelling sometimes outpaces the budget. The pacing can feel slow if you play like a generic RPG hero instead of tactician. And some players bounce off the realism in favor of more cinematic fantasy. Yet what other games truly make leadership gameplay instead of window dressing? Your decisions alter the fate of nations. Your ethics reshape history itself. And victories feel weightier because they come from strategy, not cutscene fireworks. If you want RPGs where brains matter more than stats, where consequences echo for hours, and where war and diplomacy feel terrifyingly real, the Expedition series deserves your attention. There is no other RPG, strategy game, or simulation that reaches the mythic scale of Dwarf Fortress. It isn't just a game. It's a world generator, a history machine, a tragedy simulator, and sometimes a slapstick comedy about drunk dwarves punching giant crabs to death with chairs. You lead a colony of dwarves trying to survive in a procedurally generated world where every creature has a personality, memories, and traumatic breakdowns waiting to happen. A forgotten beast might crawl out of a glowing underground lake and send your fortress into panic. A cat might track alcohol through the halls, lick itself, and spontaneously combust. Legends are written because the simulation is so deep that absurdity becomes poetry. Mechanically, it's staggering. Skills, labor, metalworking, farming, architecture, social hierarchies, all layered with psychological conditions like stress, grief, and tantrum spirals that can destroy entire civilizations. Combat simulations track bones breaking, organs bursting, weapons jamming. Then carve a history log tracking who cleaned the blood. But let's be honest, the original ASCII version is a mountain of complexity. The UI is famously chaotic, a rite of passage for new players. Learning requires community guides, videos, and patience, and losing is not just likely. It's inevitable. And that's the magic. There's no golden ending, only stories. Fortresses fall, heroes die, and the game proudly declares, losing is fun. If you want an RPG where systems tell the story, not cutscenes, where success is temporary and failure becomes legend, Dwarf Fortress is one of the most important PC RPG experiences ever made. It's not designed to make you comfortable. It's designed to make you remember. Few games let you write a family history so chaotic that future generations would burn the archives. The Crusader King series is a dynasty sim RPG disguised as a grand strategy game, or vice versa. You don't role-play a hero. You role-play an entire bloodline across centuries of political insanity. You'll manage marriages, heir disputes, assassinations, religious upheaval, and the constant threat that your heir is a disaster with the personality of rotten cheese. A brilliant ruler might build an empire through genius diplomacy, only for his imbecile son to gamble it all away after a poorly timed attempt at seducing the Pope's cousin. Every character has traits that influence behavior. Jealous lovers, arrogant kings, zealots, secret cannibals. Yes, cannibals, because history is wild. The RPG isn't in combat. It's in personality-driven chaos. You choose how your lineage rises or crumbles. Do you legitimize your bastard son or risk civil war? Convert the kingdom to appease a new spouse. Poison your own brother because he looked at your title funny. Every decision shapes the map and family drama for generations. Caveats are obvious. The first one feels ancient now. And while 2 is a masterpiece, it's also DLC heavy, which some players see as a wall of purchase decisions. Combat isn't tactical or exciting. Armies are numbers and morale bars more than battlefields. But no other RPG gives storytelling this unhinged and personal. When your dynasty falls apart, it's not game over. It's a new chapter of absolute medieval stupidity. Crusader Kings simulates history, but it also simulates every terrible decision that made history worth remembering. If you want a reminder of what true roguelike difficulty looks like, the kind that doesn't care about your feelings or your progress, Ancient Domains of Mystery stand at the top of that mountain with a sharpened spear. It drops you into the corrupted world of Ancardia, where chaos is literally spreading through reality, and you're just one fragile soul trying to push back the darkness. It is turn-based, tile-based, and brutally systemic. Hunger, infection, cursed items, crippling injuries, and permanent consequences at every step. Even reading a scroll can go catastrophically wrong if you didn't identify it first. The freedom this gives you is astonishing. There are dozens of races and classes, each with unique skill arcs and survival tactics. You can become a champion of order, a pawn of chaos, or someone desperately trying to stay alive in the middle. The world isn't static. Dungeons can shift, NPCs react to your behavior, and corruption slowly mutates your body into a dangerous weapon or a grotesque prison. Every run becomes a story built around decisions you must live with until death. This is not a game where you charge forward with confidence. Curiosity can kill you in seconds. Even kindness might doom a village and stain your reputation. The ASCII-style presentation and retro UI turn away some players immediately, but the ones who push past the surface discover one of the deepest role-playing simulations ever built. It rewards planning, learning, adapting, and most importantly, respecting the world. Survive long enough and you'll witness epic quests, divine interventions, and endings that feel like you've genuinely earned a place in the world's history. Adam will not make things easy, but if you crave a challenge that forces you to think like an adventurer instead of playing like a gamer, this is one of the most rewarding dungeon crawlers you can experience on PC. If you've ever wanted an RPG that is tactical, open-ended, and secretly a full-on pirate adventure, Horizon's Gate deserves a spot high on your list. These games mix together land exploration, naval warfare, trading, dungeon crawling, and turn-based combat that feels like a strategic sandbox, all while letting you steer your own destiny in a vibrant, ocean-dominated world. You build a party of unique characters and shape them through job system customization. Swordmasters, musketeers, pyromancers, cartomancers. You can mix abilities into wild hybrid builds that make combat feel like a playground of tactical experimentation. Enemy encounters reward positioning, combos, and clever setups over raw stats. And the game truly shines when battles transfer to ship-to-ship combat, where wind direction, hull damage, and boarding actions turn every fight into a high-stakes tactical puzzle. Exploration feels genuinely free. You can become a trader running profitable shipping routes, a treasure hunter diving for rare artifacts, or a naval terror who plunders ports and rewrites the map through force. The world responds. Economies shift, factions evolve, and your reputation spreads, sometimes in ways you don't expect or control. The downside is that the storytelling is more functional than cinematic. Characters are charming but lightly developed, and the retro pixel art, while nostalgic, won't win over players who need AAA visuals. There's also a learning curve as you juggle multiple systems at once. But beneath its modest exterior is a deeply flexible strategy RPG with a sense of adventure many modern games forgot. Horizon's Gate feels like discovering a secret, a world that keeps giving as long as your curiosity does. Divine Cybermancy looks like someone mashed together Blade Runner, Warhammer 40K, The Matrix, and a philosophy textbook, then left it to glitch into reality. Its art direction is loud, abrasive, and weird in a way that becomes hypnotic. Neon temples stretch into infinity. Armored psychic soldiers stalk through corporate dystopias. Enemies explode into sparks and blood like pixel graffiti. The whole world feels simultaneously ancient and futuristic, sacred and corrupted. It's cyberpunk filtered through fever dreams instead of realism. Weapons are oversized, armor designs are bizarre in a cool way, and every character looks like they walked out of sci-fi religion. The UI is a stylish overload of holographic symbols and stats that look cryptic because they are. This wants you to feel like a lost acolyte in a techno cult. Visually overwhelmed, never fully sure what anything means. Even the lighting is part of the aesthetic. Dark alleys sliced by magenta lights, fog-drenched streets patrolled by armored enforcers, chrome reflecting fire in scenes that feel like digital paintings. And then the game actually begins, a chaotic storm of ambition. Stealth, hacking, psychic powers, RPG progression, faction politics, branching quests, all wrapped in a story that feels written during a 3-day existential crisis. Its style is intoxicating, but the polish definitely isn't. Bugs become part of the personality. AI swings between genius and utter confusion. Tutorials explain nothing. You'll likely spend hours wondering if a mechanic is meant to work that way, or if it broke behind your back. But that's also why Divine Cybermancy has a cult following. It's messy, but boldly messy. It's the kind of game where a random system suddenly clicks, and you feel like you unlocked forbidden knowledge. Its style not as surface, but as philosophical chaos, wrapped around a shooter RPG hybrid unlike anything else. Sunday Gold feels like someone smashed together a tactical RPG, a point-and-click adventure, and a grimy cyberpunk heist movie, and somehow it works. You control a trio of criminals in a dystopian London, pulling off robberies, hacking systems, and cracking puzzles while corporate corruption poisons the world above you. It has a rebellious energy, stylish comic book visuals, sharp writing, and characters with enough personality to punch through the screen. Gameplay is a clever hybrid. Turn-based combat where AP and mental stress matter far more than in typical RPGs. Solve puzzles too long and your team panics. Pick fights carelessly and resources won't recover fast enough. Even inventory management becomes tense. The game constantly keeps pressure on you, a design choice that makes every decision feel risky. The narrative leans dark and political, with commentary on exploitation and surveillance. It's punchy and unapologetically angry in tone, perfect for fans of rough-edge cyberpunk worlds. And the structure, split between investigations and tactical showdowns, keeps things moving fast. But the ambition does reveal cracks. Some puzzles drag. Some encounters are trial-and-error difficulty spikes. And its linear structure means your choices matter less than the dialogue suggests. It's also not very long. The experience ends just as you fully settle into its rhythm. Still, what Sunday Gold does, it does with style and grit. It's fresh, experimental, and constantly engaging. A rare RPG that tries something different and mostly nails it. If you want a short, striking cyberpunk story with real tactical tension, don't skip this hidden gem. What if you took the tense, rune-clearing strategy of XCOM or Door Kickers and replaced the squad with sarcastic wizards in tactical gear? That's Tactical Breach Wizards, a tightly designed, turn-based game where spellcasters break into hostage situations, SWAT style. It shouldn't work. It absolutely does. Every spell is about crowd control and manipulation. teleport an enemy through a window, mind push a guard into his partner's line of fire, freeze someone mid-surrender so they don't alert the next room. Instead of killing everything, you're trying to solve encounters with style and precision, using limited actions that force creative solutions. Perfect turns feel incredible, like solving a tactical puzzle where the reward is a clean, cinematic takedown. Tone is where it really stands apart. Characters are witty, but not obnoxious, self-aware, but never lazy with jokes. They poke fun at police state absurdity and wizard tropes alike. The comic panel storytelling keeps things punchy and fast. No bloated cutscenes dragging down momentum. However, it's a shorter game, intentionally focused, and not a massive RPG world you'll get lost in for 60 hours. Some players may want deeper progression or more mission variety. And if you prefer dark and gritty realism, the humor might pull you out of the moment. But that's the point. This is a stylish, clever, zero-bloat tactics experience, built for people who love turn-based strategy but want something refreshing, something that cracks a smile while still demanding your brain stay switched on. It's different, in a great way, and exactly the kind of game the PC audience excels at nurturing. You can't talk about the history of computer RPGs without running into Ultima, not as a footnote, but as one of the primary pillars the genre was built on. These PC-only entries helped define morality systems, simulated worlds, and player-driven exploration long before those ideas were standard. Games like Ultima 4 to 6 and the Underworld titles weren't just ahead of their time. They basically invented the future of RPG design. Introduced the concept of virtue-based role-playing. Instead of slaying a big evil, you had to live as a good person through your actions, not your sword. 5 flipped the script and showed how those same virtues could be weaponized under tyranny. One of gaming's earliest, what if the heroes are now the villains, storylines. Underworld pushed into first-person immersive sim gameplay decades before games like Deus Ex and System Shock refined the formula. These worlds felt alive. NPCs followed schedules, reacted to crime, remembered your behavior. You could bake bread, mine, or steal absolutely everything not nailed down and suffer consequences. The freedom was staggering. But there's also barriers. The UI is ancient and clunky. Combat can feel stiff and simplistic by today's standards. Progress often requires actual note-taking and puzzle solving, not quest markers, and visuals are firmly historical importance rather than spectacle. But without these games, there is no Elder Scrolls, no BioWare moral systems, no immersive sim genre. If you want to understand what made PC RPGs so experimental and player-powered, this is where the revolution happened. The Ultima Classics don't just deserve respect. They still reward the kind of player who wants to be dropped into a world and left to figure it out like a true adventurer.
I'll kill you!
People often jump straight into The Witcher 3 and forget that the entire saga began with a strange, ambitious, PC-exclusive experiment rooted deeply in classic C RPG design. The Witcher 1 combines choice-driven narrative, alchemy focus, and morally gray decision-making that still feels more mature and uncomfortable than most modern blockbusters. Playing as Geralt isn't about being a hero. It's about survival and compromise. Quests dive into questionable ethics, where good choices often have hidden costs. Factions manipulate you. Racism and politics fuel conflict, and monsters are only half the threat. Humans are far worse. Combat is the polarizing part, a hybrid rhythm system where timed clicks trigger combos. Some players enjoy its tactical planning, others bounce off it immediately. And yes, animations are stiff and the Aurora engine shows its age. Inventory management can be a chore. It's rough around the edges in nearly every way. But the story and world building is brilliant. Few games make consequences feel so permanent. Characters you affect early may return hours later, either thanking you or destroying your life. The atmosphere is thick with dread, corruption, and mystery. The alchemy system gives real weight to preparation, making you feel like a true Witcher studying every hunt. It's flawed, gritty, and uneven, but undeniably special. If you want to see where modern RPG storytelling found its teeth, Witcher 1 is still absolutely worth your time. Vesperia Saga comes from Shozo Kaga, the original creator of Fire Emblem, and you can feel that DNA instantly. But unlike most modern strategy RPGs, this one is old school to the bone. Large maps, resource scarcity, permadeath danger, and positioning puzzles that reward players who think 5 moves ahead instead of reacting turn by turn. Battles are dense tactical challenges. Terrain, facing, weapon ranges, and choke points all matter far more than in streamlined SRPGs. Units are fragile, XP is precious, and survival requires planning smarter rather than just grinding levels. Every recruit is valuable, and losing one hurts not just emotionally, but strategically. The narrative leans into classic political fantasy, with multiple nations vying for power, betrayals in the shadows, and a grounded tone compared to anime-style melodrama. Dialogue isn't flashy, but it's sincere, and choices can influence routes and character fates. Now the caveats. It's very retro. UI is clunky, visuals are simplistic, and animations are minimal. The game expects you to learn its rules the hard way, with difficulty spikes that may turn away casual players. There's no big cinematic payoff here. But for tactics fans who crave hardcore map design, intricate battle logic, and a return to the roots of the genre from its original architect, Vesperia Saga is a hidden gem that PC players absolutely shouldn't skip. Pathologic style is uncomfortable on purpose. It's dirty, monotone, and surreal, like a stage play performed in a town that forgot it was dying. Buildings stretch upward like sick giants. Masks conceal emotions while revealing dread. Every corner feels wrong, but never in a loud, horror movie way. Instead, it's philosophical terror. Visuals designed to unsettle you slowly, scene by scene, until you realize you've been tense for hours without any jump scare in sight. The NPCs are the heart of its visual identity. Their stiff movements and extended eye contact create uncanny interactions that stick in the mind far longer than polished mocap ever could. It's theater, characters positioned like eerie mannequins delivering cryptic lines in environments that feel like symbolic backdrops instead of literal streets. Reality itself is theatrical because Pathologic isn't mimicking the real world, it's forcing you to interpret it. Color shifts reveal what the narrative won't explain directly. Sickly yellows choking areas of infection, nightly purples that feel like bruises on the town's skin, and late-game visuals that make the very air seem diseased. These artistic choices serve the gameplay. Survival feels visually exhausting. Hunger bars and infection levels don't just define mechanics, they define mood. You feel the strain. Of course, style comes with pain. Controls are awkward, movement is slow, quest demands suffering, and failure is always a few minutes away. The original release especially looks rough in technical terms. Low detail models, janky animations, visual noise that can feel borderline broken. But Pathologic's greatness isn't in technical polish, it's in conceptual artistry. The visuals reinforce dread, decay, and hopelessness so strongly that they become the narrative. It's a reminder that style isn't always beauty. Sometimes it's discomfort, wielded with absolute confidence. If you've ever wanted a CRPG that genuinely captures Lovecraft's descent into madness, Stygian, Reign of the Old Ones stands nearly alone. This isn't cosmic horror as spooky window dressing. This is a world that's already lost. Arkham has fallen into an impossible nightmare dimension ruled by ancient entities, and your sanity isn't a resource. It's a countdown to losing yourself entirely. Character creation is a highlight. Your archetype doesn't just define combat abilities. It shapes how you perceive and respond to the unraveling reality around you. A rational investigator may cling to logic, while a cultist embraces the terrifying truth. Morality isn't good or evil. It's ideology versus survival, each with different interactions, companions, and breakdowns. Combat is turn-based tactics with brutal consequences. Ammo is scarce, wounds persist, and enemies don't care about fairness. The game constantly stresses you through resource scarcity, mental strain, and the knowledge that you might not be able to save anyone, not even yourself. So what holds it back? It's rough around the edges, bugs, occasional uneven balancing, and an ending that feels abrupt, like the ambition exceeded the budget. It can be punishing enough to drive away players expecting power fantasy rather than progressive instability. But for those who love RPGs where horror isn't an aesthetic, it's the gameplay loop. Stygian is a bold, chilling experience that dares to go where most games are too afraid to even look. It's flawed, yes, but it achieves an atmosphere few titles can match. Arcanum tries to marry high fantasy and the Industrial Revolution. That's how we get elves in business suits. Orcs working assembly lines. Wizards fighting corporations because technology is making magic unstable. This world isn't just steampunk fantasy. It simulates a society struggling to redefine itself as science and tradition tear each other apart. Your character build changes physics. Tech users cause magic to fizzle. Mages sabotage machines with their presence alone. You could be a silver-tongued diplomat, a gunslinging tinkerer, or a necromancer CEO running a workforce of zombies, and the world reacts differently every time. Quests rarely end cleanly. Progress helps some people while sinking others, and prejudice is woven into every interaction. Dialogue choices branch based on skills, intelligence, and reputation. Failures don't reset. They become part of your story. You can talk your way out of boss fights or trigger entirely new ones by mishandling a conversation. This is a true role-playing engine, not just a quest checklist, but its ambition outstrips its budget. Combat is clunky whether real-time or turn-based. Terrain and UI can frustrate. The world is huge, but pacing can wander. And visually, even in 2001, Arcanum looked like leftovers from a decade earlier. It requires patience and imagination. For players who value freedom of identity, though, there's nothing else like it. Few RPGs dare to let you rewrite society through ideology instead of violence. Arcanum remains one of the smartest, boldest PC exclusives ever. Flawed? Yes, but full of moments that feel truly alive with possibility. Ballroom is one of those RPGs that looks small at first glance, then slowly reveals it's hiding a surprisingly deep and thoughtful experience beneath its pixel art surface. You start in a quiet rural community, but underneath the calm lies a world filled with survival systems, tactical combat, secrets, and player-driven exploration that feels like a lost art in modern RPG design. This is an RPG where planning matters. You manage hunger, thirst, farming, crafting, home building, all while uncovering a dark conspiracy threatening the land. You don't just loot better gear, you also forge it. You don't buy potions endlessly, you grow ingredients to keep yourself alive. The world is grid-based and exploration-heavy, rewarding curiosity with hidden caves, moral dilemmas, and dungeons filled with traps designed to punish the careless. Combat is turn-based and tactical. Positioning is key. Spells can change the flow of battle, and enemies don't scale to your level, meaning wandering in the wrong direction is a dangerous decision. Skill choices feel meaningful, and character builds can shift your entire playstyle. It's not flashy, and that's its biggest caveat. The presentation is modest, animation stiff, dialogue functional rather than cinematic. The pacing begins slow, which may filter out players who are used to instant action. But for those who stick with it, Ballroom becomes immersive comfort food for old-school RPG lovers, full of atmosphere, freedom, and handcrafted design. If you miss games that trust you to adventure without markers shouting where to go next, this is the kind of quietly brilliant RPG that modern studios rarely make anymore. Fear in Hunger and its sequel are RPGs that look like nightmares sketched during sleep paralysis. Uncomfortable, unforgettable, deliberately wrong in all the right ways. These games push style through horror that feels diseased. Grainy textures, stark hand-drawn character art, twisted anatomy that's more psychological than physical. It's not the kind of beauty people frame. It's the kind that crawls under your skin and makes you question why you're intrigued instead of running away. Every screen feels damp, cold, and hungry for your failure. Torches flicker like they're afraid to exist. Walls are covered in stains and symbols that feel ritualistic, not decorative. Even NPC poses radiate dread. Eyes too wide, limbs too stiff, faces stuck in expressions that hint at what they've seen. The grim fantasy never breaks style to comfort you. This is misery as an art project. Gameplay turns horror into mechanics. Random limb loss, permadeath lurking constantly, and NPC encounters where a friendly request can become mutilation 2 steps later. Music whines, creaks, and pulses like a heartbeat that isn't yours. It's stylish because it commits fully to despair, crafting an atmosphere stronger than many polished horror games. But this experience is not for everyone. Difficulty is merciless. Systems don't just lack tutorials, they almost mock the idea of helping you. Sexual violence themes and grotesque transformations push boundaries well past common comfort levels. Performance quirks from the RPG Maker Foundation show their seams. Many players bounce off instantly. Yet for those who stay, Fear in Hunger becomes unforgettable. Style here is weaponized. Not pretty, not polished, but intense and impossible to ignore. The kind of art that haunts your thoughts long after you shut off the screen. Like a heartbeat that isn't yours. It's stylish because it commits fully to despair, crafting an atmosphere stronger than many polished horror games. Before Fallout became a massive open-world shooter series, it was a razor-sharp C RPG built around choices that change everything. You're tossed into a broken wasteland, not to save it, but to survive it. And survival in Fallout is never clean. Every settlement has its own fragile ecosystem of power, fear, and desperation, and even small decisions can snowball into world-shaping consequences. These games don't care if your character is charming, violent, clever, or stupid. They'll let you roleplay it all. A genius doctor can solve conflict without firing a bullet. A berserker melee brute might upheave entire towns by accident. Dump intelligence, and your character literally speaks like a caveman, unlocking new chaotic dialogue routes. The world reacts to who you are, not who the game wants you to be. Turn-based combat is tactical and brutal. Every bullet counts, injuries matter, and sometimes the smartest move is to run away and live another day. And endings reflect everything, from the fate of tiny villages to the destiny of major factions. Games now promise choices that matter. Fallout actually delivered it when most developers were still figuring out what that meant. The biggest hurdle today? The UI is stiff, the pace slower, and visuals primitive by modern standards. They demand patience, attention, and willingness to truly roleplay. But beneath the retro presentation lies some of the best writing and world logic RPGs have ever seen. Fallout 1 and 2 built the foundation for every post-apocalyptic RPG that followed, yet still outsmart most of them. If you want to understand why PC players became obsessed with choices, consequences, and emergent storytelling, this is where the legacy begins. Nox is one of those games that hits the perfect sweet spot between action and RPG mechanics, and then somehow got buried under time. It's fast, responsive, and packed with personality. You choose from 3 completely different classes: warrior, wizard, or conjurer. And that choice doesn't just change abilities, it changes the entire campaign. Quest lines, story beats, even the final villain battle shift based on who you are. That kind of replay value is rare even today. Combat is real-time and skill-based. You're aiming abilities manually, dodging spells, bouncing projectiles around corners, and using line of sight to survive. It's a game that rewards reflexes and smart positioning instead of just pumping stats. Meanwhile, the world feels alive through interactive physics. Spells knock enemies around, barrels explode into shrapnel, and traps can save you or destroy you, depending on how clever you are. This also has a great sense of humor. NPCs bicker, villains chew the scenery, and the world balances danger with a playful tone. It looks vibrant and performs great even today, especially with mods and modern resolution support. But yes, there are caveats. The story leans light and tropey. Some quests feel like dungeon gauntlets without much narrative glue. And if you come from isometric CRPGs expecting tons of dialogue and choices, this is more of a kinetic action ride. Certain sections spike in difficulty hard if you don't adapt to your class strengths. And inventory space can feel like its own form of punishment. Still, Nox stands tall as a pure fun PC-exclusive action RPG. Tight controls, unique campaigns, a great multiplayer mode back in its prime, and more personality than some AAA franchises. If Diablo ever had a sibling that took up fencing and practical jokes instead of heavy metal guitars, this would be it. Fortune's Run is a stylish throwback to the era when immersive sims were more punk than prestige. Its entire look feels like a cyberpunk fever dream, filtered through retro PS2 era aesthetic. Neon lights that smear across oily rain, tight hallways stacked with industrial rust, and character models that lean into sharp silhouettes over realism. It's not trying to imitate Cyberpunk 2077's polished chrome future. This is the rebellious back alley version, where style means attitude and atmosphere, not polygon counts. What sets Fortune's Run apart is how well its look supports its gameplay ambitions. Levels are built like sandbox playgrounds. Vents, rooftops, shifting patrol routes, doors you can unlock, hack, or blow off their hinges. And all of those moving pieces feel deliberately messy, like the world was built by imperfect people in a society crumbling from within. Combat animations are punchy and tactile. Kicks send enemies collapsing into piles of limbs. Blades leave sweeping arcs, and gunfire is explosive and chunky rather than clinical. Even cloaking tech flickers with a glitchy style to remind you nothing is clean here. But it's still early access and you feel that rawness. Some areas look sparse, lighting can be uneven, and enemy behaviors occasionally swing from brilliant flanking maneuvers to confused circling. Narratively, the intro is stylish but vague, leaving players unsure where they stand beyond basic rebellion. The ambition is huge, maybe too huge, and you can sense the team wrestling with scope. Yet those imperfections add to its appeal. Fortune's Run doesn't want to be sleek. It wants to be cool, dangerous, and unpredictable. The kind of game where kicking a cyborg off a balcony into a buzzing neon sign looks better than any cutscene ever could. If it sticks the landing, this could become one of the most visually confident, immersive sims on PC. Not because of budget, but because of identity. If you've ever wished XCOM had anime-style storytelling, JRPG leveling depth, and battles that feel like chaotic superhero standoffs, then Troubleshooter. Abandoned Children is one of the best tactical RPGs you haven't played yet. You lead a squad of freelance peacekeepers called Troubleshooters in a futuristic megacity overflowing with crime, corruption, and factions constantly on the edge of open war. Every character is handcrafted with insanely deep skill customization, passive builds, combo interactions, and weapon specializations that turn your team into personalized power fantasies. There's a ridiculous amount of progression, talent grids, mastery fusion, subclass variations, enough to make min-maxers lose sleep while smiling the whole time. And the turn-based combat feels big. Wide-open urban arenas, tons of playable heroes, dozens of enemy types, and battles that play like chess matches mixed with explosive anime action. The catch: it's long. Like, very long. Campaign missions can run 45 to 90 minutes, and difficulty spikes can blindside you if you don't grind or adjust your builds. The UI can feel overwhelming at first, and cutscenes sometimes lean into tropey melodrama. And despite how ambitious it is, the visuals occasionally show the indie budget. But once you're in, you're hooked. This is one of the most content-rich single-player tactical RPGs on PC, constantly evolving with updates from a small but highly dedicated dev team. Troubleshooter isn't just worth your time. It may steal weeks of it. As opposed to challenging your endurance, Under Rail challenges your mind. This is a tactical CRPG that demands planning, specialization, and a willingness to learn from every mistake. Set in a subterranean wasteland where the surface is uninhabitable, society has fractured into paranoid factions competing for resources buried in darkness. You're nobody special, yet. But the underground is the kind of place where smart nobodies rise fast or die horribly. Combat is turn-based, brutal, and deeply built around your character build. Pistols, crossbows, chemical weapons, even psionic abilities that break reality are all viable, but only if committed to fully. A jack of all trades here is just a corpse waiting to happen. The game expects you to think 2 moves ahead, control positioning, manage resistances, exploit choke points, and combine environmental effects into deadly ambushes. Exploration is slow, tense, and dripping with paranoia. Resources are limited and injuries matter. Even the act of going deeper into metro tunnels feels like a threat. New enemies, new mutations, new reasons to regret opening a door you can't close. The storytelling isn't flashy, but it's sharp. People lie. Factions manipulate you. Survival takes priority over morality. And when you reach the deep caverns, the game becomes an unforgettable test of everything you've learned. Yet this game's strengths come packaged with reality. Visuals are plain, and the difficulty can be brutal for newcomers. It does not care if you struggle. It was designed for players who want systems over spectacle. But for those who crave tactical depth, true build identity, and a world that respects cunning above all else, Under Rail stands among the finest PC-exclusive RPGs ever made. It doesn't guide you. It judges you. And if you conquer it, you'll feel like you earned every inch of your journey through the dark. If you've ever wished RPGs would let you live a medieval life instead of just slaying dragons, The Guild 2 is exactly that fantasy, with all the messy politics and petty rivalries that come with it. You don't play a chosen hero here, you play a person. A blacksmith, a baker, a merchant, a scoundrel. Someone trying to build a dynasty through business, marriage alliances, legal manipulation, and occasionally a little sabotage. This is a role-playing experience where economy is your battlefield. You'll manage workshops, trade goods, persuade officials, and run for public office. Want to own the city? Earn power through noble titles. Want to ruin your enemies? Bribe guards to arrest them, spread rumors, or have them quietly removed. There is no single right path, just how far you're willing to go. Yet, despite its ambition, The Guild 2 is also a janky masterpiece. The AI can be chaotic, bugs occasionally break immersion, and systems sometimes clash in ways that produce hilarious nonsense. The UI feels dated, and new players often struggle to understand how deep the mechanics run until they've failed a few dynasties. But once everything clicks, this becomes one of the most unique simulation RPGs on PC, where every victory is personal because you created your own story. There's simply nothing else that lets you role-play a political manipulator with a bakery empire the same way this game does. And that's why it still stands out today. Lionheart is one of those RPGs that had brilliant ideas on paper and a cult following too, but its reach exceeded its grasp. The setup is incredible. An alternate history Europe where the Crusades ripped open magical rifts that unleashed spirits, demons, and corruption into the world. You're born with a magical soul fragment that grants supernatural powers, but also makes you a target for every faction trying to control humanity's future. The game leans on real historical figures like Leonardo da Vinci and Torquemada, but twists them into a dark fantasy landscape full of intrigue. The early game is surprisingly strong. You're thrown into Barcelona, a hub with dialogue-rich quests, meaningful faction choices, and skill-based interactions. Speech, stealth, magic, and melee all give different ways to approach problems, and a special style system like classic Fallout gives you tons of freedom to design who your character is. Then comes the flaw that defines its reputation. Once you leave Barcelona, the game abruptly shifts into a mostly linear action grind through swarms of enemies. The branching quests and role-playing elements fade, replaced by a repetitive loop of combat arenas where build flexibility narrows drastically. You can feel the ambition hitting a wall. The second half feels unfinished compared to what the opening promises. And yet, Lionheart remains fascinating. Its alternate history world building is bold and eerie. Its early hours deliver genuinely great RPG decision-making. And its skill system still rewards creative play if you don't fall into the trap of pure combat builds. Players who enjoy flawed gems, games with big ideas, and uneven execution will find something worth defending here. The Escalon games feel like they fell out of a time machine from the golden age of PC RPGs. And that's exactly why they're so refreshing. These are slow-burn, single-character, turn-based CRPGs where exploration and survival matter far more than flashy spectacle. You wake up with a classic case of amnesia, but instead of being handed destiny, you're handed a harsh wilderness and told to figure it out. Every cave you enter, every locked chest you gamble on, every mushroom you pick could be the step that saves or ruins you. What makes it special is how deeply it simulates role-playing fundamentals. Weather affects your accuracy. Hunger matters. Lighting changes stealth. Even carrying too much weight can lead to injury. You're constantly balancing risk. Push one tile further into the dark, or limp back to town before your supplies run dry. Combat is challenging and thoughtful, and builds feel truly unique whether you're a bow sniper, pyromancer, assassin, or alchemist brewing terrifying concoctions. There's no quest mark or breadcrumb trail guiding you. Clues come from notes, rumors, and observation. Like classic RPGs where paying attention meant progress. The world is filled with secrets, hidden skills, and side paths that reward curiosity rather than minimap obedience. That said, though, the isometric visuals are simple. Animations are stiff. Voice acting doesn't exist. These games do zero hand-holding, which some modern players may mistake for emptiness instead of freedom. The story works, but it's more functional than unforgettable. Still, if you crave exploration with actual danger, mechanics that reward thoughtfulness, and a world that respects your intelligence, Escalon is a trilogy of pure PCRPG soul. If you took the eerie atmosphere of King's Field, mixed it with PS1 era dreamlike horror and a surreal occult underworld, you'd get Lunacid. It's a first-person dungeon crawler with real weight, where every step into the darkness could be a mistake you only realize when you hear something breathing too close behind you. The world is a nightmare labyrinth, crypts, fungal caverns, submerged ruins, all stitched together by unsettling NPCs who seem aware you don't belong there. Combat is deliberate, not flashy. You swing weapons with commitment, manage stamina carefully, and learn enemy patterns through pain and persistence. Magic and equipment customization let you define your approach. A cursed blade that drains life, spells that risk backfiring, armor that protects but slows you enough to get caught in a corner. The atmosphere is the real star. Low-poly environments soaked in dread and nostalgia, like discovering a forgotten horror game from 1998 that's somehow smarter than half the modern industry. The biggest caveats stem from its indie nature. It can be janky, enemy AI can behave strangely, and the progression curve sometimes spikes hard if you wander too far in the wrong direction. The story is intentionally cryptic. Some players will love piecing together lore scraps. Others may feel left in the dark with no answers. But if you crave RPGs where exploration fuels fear, where discovery feels dangerous, and where you constantly question what lurks just beyond torchlight, Lunacid delivers atmosphere like almost nothing else today. It's a dungeon crawl that respects curiosity and punishes recklessness.
Ready.
If you've ever wished we could go back to the golden era of Fire Emblem and Ogre Battle, then Symphony of War, the Nephilim Saga, is one of the best modern heirs to that legacy, but built only for PC, with a scale those classics rarely achieved. What looks like a simple 2D tactics game reveals a deep system where you create entire squads, not just single units. Each battalion is a mini army: mages, gunners, cavalry, healers, all combining into formations where placement, type synergy, and leadership define every clash. Combat is fast yet layered. One wrong squad composition, and you'll get melted by archers or cavalry charges. Morale, weather, positioning on the battlefield, they all matter. Victories feel strategic, not statistical. And your choices ripple outside combat too. Politics, faction alliances, and narrative consequences shape how the war unfolds. The story isn't groundbreaking, but it's sincere. Rebellion, oppression, and power collide in a classic fantasy setting that isn't afraid to dig into darker territory. Visually, it uses vibrant pixel art and dramatic battle animations that give every clash a punch. The soundtrack amplifies the feeling that you're fighting in a true fantasy epic. There's a dopamine hit every time a squad evolves into something stronger. New classes, artifacts that redefine roles, and heroes that feel genuinely earned. The caveats are that newcomers might feel overwhelmed by just how many systems layer on top of each other, and the UI can get a little dense because of that complexity. Some maps can drag if you over-optimize. And yes, it borrows heavily from classics, so players expecting a totally original twist might find familiar beats. But for those who want huge tactical battles, deep progression, and PC-style customization instead of console streamlining, Symphony of War is an absolute must-play. And with ports still in development, right now PC is the only place to experience it. If you want to understand where modern dungeon crawling and hardcore party-based RPG design came from, you have to stand in the shadow of wizardry. This series, especially the classic PC-only entries, defined what it meant to build characters, manage resources, and survive brutal, twisting mazes when the industry was still learning how to be kind to players. The classic formula is simple on paper and savage in practice. Create a party from dozens of classes and races, juggle stats and spells, and crawl multi-level dungeons filled with traps, puzzles, and enemies that will exploit the smallest tactical error. Spell casting is weighty. Resources are scarce, scrolls and potions are precious, and every rest can be interrupted by the threat of ambush. Beyond combat, Wizardry's world design is relentlessly clever. Maze layouts are cunning. Secret doors hide lore and treasure, and puzzles sometimes require actual pencil and paper mapping to solve. There's a palpable sense of discovery in finding a previously unknown shortcut or decoding a rune that opens a new dungeon branch. The satisfaction of finally clearing a level you've been stuck on for hours is the kind of achievement that modern handholding rarely produces. That obsession with challenge also creates real barriers. These entries aren't remotely forgiving by current standards. Save scumming is common, and many mechanics can exasperate players used to generous checkpoints. Graphically and mechanically, they show their age. Some early PC wizardry titles are raw, with blocky interfaces, archaic UIs, and documentation that reads more like a rulebook than a tutorial. Yet, this lives as a masterclass in design discipline. Every resource has meaning. Every decision weighs on your survival and emergent stories. The series also inspired an entire generation of RPGs. Its DNA is in. For anyone who cherishes the roots of party-based role-playing, the PC wizardry entries remain historically important. Zwei, the Ilvard Insurrection, is a weird, delightful outlier. A mix of action RPG, comedy anime that makes it one of those PC-only experiences that feels unconstrained by mainstream trends. At face value, it's colorful and accessible. Two protagonists team up to blast through monsters, collect loot, and rescue a world gone charmingly wrong. But beneath the inviting veneer is a surprisingly deep action system, genuine character bonding, and an RPG loop crafted to reward experimentation. Combat is immediate and tactile. You swap between characters on the fly, chain combos, and manage special meters to trigger flashy joint attacks that feel powerful without ever turning into meaningless spectacle. Itemization matters. Weapon types, augment chips, and socketable accessories create meaningful choices. There's also a satisfying economy of risk and reward when exploring optional dungeons. It really shines in its tone and pacing. The writing is lighthearted, full of banter, unexpected emotional beats, and weird side characters who linger in your memory. Side quests are short but often clever, and the world design balances linear progression with explorable nooks that hide secrets for players who poke around. That said, this isn't for every RPG fan. If you want epic, slow-burn role-playing with heavy moral dilemmas, this might feel shallow. The narrative can be episodic, with some story threads wrapped up quickly or left intentionally loose. Difficulty is mostly moderate. The game rarely punishes analytical players, which is great for many but less appealing for others. Also, localization quality varies between releases, with some rough translations that community patches cleaned up. In short, Zwei is a breath of fresh air, a PC-grown action RPG that mixes approachable action with genuine RPG systems and character chemistry. This is an underappreciated pick that rewards curiosity and a willingness to smile while you slice through chaos. Most fantasy RPGs try to be believable worlds. Dread Delusion doesn't care about believable. It cares about dreamlike horror, strange gods, and forbidden beauty floating in a shattered sky. Imagine Morrowind's almost alien environments, sharpened into something even weirder. Fractured realms ruled by cults, philosophy turned into architecture, and people who cling to impossible beliefs because reality is falling apart beneath them. You explore the world in first person, not as a power fantasy, but as a traveler trying to understand a place where nothing is quite right. Every island has its own customs, its own unsettling logic. The game constantly asks questions like, if faith literally shapes reality, who decides what's true? It's both eerie and fascinating to navigate a land where propaganda and worship feel like weapons. Character progression is flexible, and most situations reward creative approaches rather than combat. The game wants you to poke around corners, read odd books, talk to fanatics, and solve problems by thinking instead of swinging a sword. When fights do happen, they're scrappy and simple. This isn't a combat-first RPG, but that simplicity works because violence doesn't solve the core tension here. What's real, what's sacred, and who decides? The flaws are clear. The graphics are retro low poly, intentionally stylized, but still rough and not for everyone. UI and animations can make you feel the indie budget at times, and it's shorter than many RPGs on this list. But the design perspective is so refreshingly bold that the experience lingers long after you finish. Dread Delusion isn't about saving the world. It's concerned with understanding one that may not deserve salvation. It's daring, stylish, and full of weird wonder. And if a game can make you uncomfortable while also pulling you deeper into its mysteries, that's real power, even if the sky is falling apart. Most RPGs ask you to save the world. Tyranny begins after the world has already been conquered, and you helped make that happen. You're a fate binder, judge and enforcer for the regime of Kairos, a ruler who controls reality through magic law that everyone must obey, including you. This flips the genre's morality completely. You're working inside the oppressive regime instead of rebelling against it. Choice is where it shines. Your decisions don't just change dialogue. They reshape the world, unlock new spellcrafting options, empower factions, and cause allies to become rivals or even warlord depending on how you interpret the law. The Conquest prologue alone alters the entire campaign before gameplay begins. Combat blends real-time with pause and character synergy mechanics, where combining abilities creates new effects. A mage can ignite a warrior's blade with magical fire mid-swing, for example. The magic system is one of the coolest in any RPG. You craft custom spells through sigils that drastically alter abilities and elements. But here's the flaw many still talk about. The ending is rushed. The game's ambition feels like Act 3 was cut short, leaving consequences built up across dozens of hours resolved too quickly. And some faction routes are more polished than others. Yet even with those flaws, Tyranny earns its place here. It's morally complex, bold in theme, rich in world building, and still uniquely fresh in the RPG genre. A must-play for anyone who believes choices should hurt.
Go downstairs and scan relics.
Imagine if old-school Fallout was rebuilt around a mysterious sci-fi megastructure instead of a nuclear wasteland that's encased. The setting is the Dome, a massive alien artifact humanity tried to control, exploit, and industrialize. Then something went horribly wrong, and now everyone trapped inside has to navigate a reality where technology mutates, ideologies clash, and knowledge is both salvation and weapon. This thrives on choice-heavy role-playing. Your character's background shapes quests and alliances from the start. Dialogue challenges you constantly. Do you manipulate, bribe, threaten, or sacrifice? Factions are morally messy. Protectors act like tyrants, rebels commit atrocities, and heroes get people killed through good intentions. Combat is turn-based with strong tactical depth. Cover, precision targeting, and environmental effects all matter. Looting and crafting aren't filler. They're often the difference between barely scraping through a shootout or dominating it. Exploration reveals hidden bunkers, shifting anomalies, and relics that don't care whether your brain survives understanding them. The flaws? It doesn't have blockbuster polish. Animations are stiff, pacing lags in some chapters, and writing quality varies across quest lines. Characters are compelling, but sometimes underdeveloped due to budget constraints. It's a classic AA RPG. Huge ambition supported by limited resources. Yet what Encased nails is atmosphere, consequence, and identity. It respects players who think before acting and allows imperfect solutions to become the story. If you crave a slower burn, thoughtful RPG where your decisions actually change the Dome, Encased deserve a place high on your list.
You to come and take a look.
Colony Ship is a game built entirely around harsh choices and harsher consequences. Set aboard a massive generation starship that's been trapped in political decay for decades. Instead of crowded planets or sprawling kingdoms, you explore claustrophobic steel corridors, factions clinging to survival, and a future where faith and power have mutated into desperate ideologies. The game's visual style isn't flashy, but it's purposeful. Stark lighting, patched-together tech, ramshackle settlements welded into old ship infrastructure. Everything sells the idea of a society eating itself from the inside out. Combat is tactical and unforgiving. Cover matters. Flanking matters. One bad positioning call means characters bleed out on metal floors because you didn't respect a pistol as much as a shotgun. Iron Tower Studio is committed to logic over power fantasy, and that creates a style grounded in grit and consequence. Every gunshot feels like rust scraping through steel. Every armor piece looks scavenged, not crafted for heroes. There's a realism to its ugliness that makes the atmosphere unforgettable. But this game is not interested in welcoming players warmly. Dialogue is dense, diplomacy systems require forethought, and narrative paths lock hard behind the skills you choose, sometimes brutally early. Some players hit roadblocks because the game doesn't bend to accommodate mistakes. Combat animations are functional rather than cinematic. You're not meant to admire beauty. You're meant to survive. That's the point. Colony Ship style comes from tone, architecture, and the constant pressure of choices you can't undo. It doesn't look like a glossy sci-fi epic. It looks like a future humanity would actually build and destroy. And that bold commitment makes it one of the most distinct PC-exclusive RPGs in years. Few games have ever delivered D&D as faithfully or as punishingly as Temple of Elemental Evil. This is a tactical RPG where every combat encounter is a chess match loaded with dice rolls, feats, flanking bonuses, opportunity attacks, spell modifiers, and positional advantages that hardcore CRPG fans absolutely devour. Character creation is shockingly deep. You don't just pick a class. You sculpt a build with deliberate strengths, weaknesses, and combat roles. The fights reward smart tactics and punish sloppy ones immediately. Fireballs hit allies if you misjudge positioning. Charging head-on, that's how you die fast. It's also one of the first true isometric RPGs to allow full party control in turn-based combat, setting the groundwork for modern successors like Pathfinder and Solasta. For that alone, it deserves respect. Now, the flaws, because yes, there are plenty. The game launched with infamous bugs that nearly crushed its reputation. The narrative pacing is uneven. You get thrown into dungeon content quickly with not much handholding. In outside battle, interactions can occasionally feel bare bones. But here's the twist. The community fixed what the studio couldn't. With fan patches like the Circle of 8 mod pack, Temple of Elemental Evil transforms into a fantastic tactical CRPG that stands proudly among modern equivalents. If you love complex rule sets, brutally fair fights, and pure tactics over cinematic spectacle, this is one of the best D&D combat systems ever made. Just make sure you install the mods and buckle up for a challenge.
The right man, and that man will want to get married in a...
Before action RPGs became loot treadmills with endless numbers, Dungeon Siege delivered a different fantasy. A seamless, party-based adventure where the world doesn't pause to load. It just keeps stretching outward into forests, crypts, mountains, and war-torn landscapes teeming with danger. It's RPG comfort food forged during the golden age of early 2000s PC gaming. The first game is a pure march of momentum. You start as a humble farmer and organically gather warriors, archers, and mages into a roaming squad. Battles become chaotic war fronts as spells and arrows turn combat into a constant forward push rather than stop-and-go encounters. The story isn't deep, but the structure makes adventuring feel effortless and addictive. The sequel adds more RPG depth with class specializations, companion development, branching skills, and quests with actual emotional stakes. It brings the series closer to its RPG cousins like Diablo, while still keeping the feel of a traveling warband exploring a huge, varied world. The atmosphere hits the perfect nostalgic tone, music swelling as landscapes widen and threats escalate into epic wars. However, these games show their age. Dialogue and storytelling are basic. Enemy AI can be repetitive, and the visuals are firmly locked in the early 2000s. They aren't systems-heavy CRPGs and don't offer big choice-driven role-playing moments. And their biggest weakness today is that they're no longer easily available on platforms like Steam, meaning newcomers may need workarounds to play them at all. But when you do get them running, few RPGs deliver such pure, uninterrupted fantasy adventure. Dungeon Siege isn't about deep mechanics. It's about the joy of journeying, fighting, looting, and watching a band of nobodies become a legend. Sometimes, that's exactly what an RPG should be. There's a reason Bloodlines, even after so long, refuses to stay dead. Even decades later, it remains one of the most reactive and atmospheric RPGs ever created, a neon-soaked descent into LA's supernatural underbelly, where the monsters look like us but only barely act like it. You're shoved into vampiric life with no guidance and no mercy, forced to navigate ancient politics, serial killer nightmares, and the hunger that defines your every move. The clans you choose from not only change combat style, but they completely rewrite your identity. A charismatic Toreador becomes a nightclub star who feeds on fame and touch. A Nosferatu hides in sewers, using stealth to survive a world that panics the moment they're seen. A Malkavian is a full-blown oracles of chaos. Your dialogue becomes riddles, prophecies, and unsettling humor only you understand. playthroughs feel like entirely different games. Every quest is dripping with personality. A haunted hotel that sets the standard for horror storytelling, cult conspiracies that unravel into something worse, and characters who are uncomfortably charming right up until they show their fangs. Your choices ripple across factions hungry for power or survival, and the game remembers almost everything you do. But its flaws are infamous. It launched with bugs so vicious that modders spent years stitching the game back together. The gunplay and animations are stiff. Some areas feel incomplete. Yet none of that stops the storytelling from slicing deep. This is an RPG driven by tone, roleplay, and consequence, not polish. Bloodlines is the definition of a cult classic, ragged, brilliant, and unforgettable. There's still nothing else that captures the seductive fear of modern monsters like this game does, and that's why fans still hunger for it. If you've ever wanted to dive into a roguelike that feels as deep as a traditional RPG, Tales of Maj'Eyal is the place where those two worlds collide beautifully and brutally. Every run is a brand new story, each character build so drastically different that the game practically becomes a genre factory. Want to be a chronomancer who rewinds reality? A demonologist who weaponizes corruption? A skeleton arcane knight wielding magic through a shield? Yep, that's just the start. The game's greatest strength is its immense build diversity, with class trees branching into hundreds of unique synergies. And unlike many roguelikes that rely on simple stats and speed, this is tactical. Positioning, cooldowns, elemental counters, resistances, line-of-sight abuse, all of it matters. Death isn't just a restart. It's a lesson in survival psychology. When you succeed, it's because you genuinely learned something. Exploration is addictive too. The world of Eyal is packed with handcrafted lore, weird factions, ancient evils, and hidden storylines that you'll only discover after dozens of hours. It's designed not to be beaten quickly, but to be mastered over time. The flip side? The UI can feel overwhelming, and newcomers may need time before the systems click. Visually, it's functional rather than gorgeous, closer to a modded classic RPG than a modern game. And because balance constantly shifts through updates, your favorite build can get nerfed into the abyss overnight. But all of that supports the heart of the genre, constant discovery. Every death leads to new knowledge, new secrets, and new ways to break the game. Tales of Maj'Eyal isn't just worth your time, it can easily consume it. When most RPGs treat you like a hero, Geneforge treats you like a scientist playing God and dealing with the fallout of every decision you make. This cult classic series from Spiderweb Software gives you a morally gray power fantasy. Shape life itself, command your own living creations, and decide whether you'll uphold or destroy the oppressive order that controls this dangerous art. You play a shaper, someone who can create bioengineered monsters to fight for you. Want a swarm of terrifying lizards or giant crab tanks? Maybe sentient horrors that barely obey. You don't just tame beasts, you design them. That power feels intoxicating until those creations begin questioning why they must obey. The series constantly challenges your ethics. Do these creatures have a right to freedom, or are they tools you have every right to discard? Exploration and storytelling are the heart of this game. Quests frequently offer multiple wildly different paths, and combat isn't always the smartest option, especially when diplomacy or manipulation can create longer-lasting stability. Faction choices reshape entire regions, and each game expands the setting into a deeper political nightmare where rebellion, religion, and science collide. The games are admittedly niche. The visuals are extremely simple, menu-heavy, and unchanged from Spiderweb's very old-school style. Combat pacing can feel slow, and the interface demands patience from modern players. But anyone willing to push past that surface finds one of the most reactive and original RPG series ever made, offering philosophical dilemmas most AAA studios wouldn't touch. Geneforge is pure PC role-playing, choices that haunt you, consequences that matter, and power that always comes with a price. Stone Shard is a reminder that medieval fantasy shouldn't feel safe. There's no magical bed that cures all wounds here, but only makeshift bandages, infection, stress, hunger, and pain that refuses to politely fade away. When you leave town, you plan like you're prepping for war. Forget a single detail, and a simple wolf encounter becomes your grave. This is a harsh, sandbox survival RPG where every action is deliberate and every step into the wilderness could be a mistake. The world doesn't scale to help you. You're the one who has to rise to its level. Combat is turn-based and brutally tactical. Positioning, stamina, and bleeding all matter. A poorly chosen swing can doom your entire run. And because progression is tied to hands-on mastery rather than simple XP dumps, all the different builds play like their own survival strategy. What separates it from other roguelike-inspired RPGs is how failure creates story. You limp home after a disastrous dungeon, broke and half-conscious, and that struggle becomes a chapter of your legend. Victory isn't loud. It's relief that you lived long enough to make another choice. Now, the game is still in early access, which means the main story isn't finished. Difficulty can feel unfair without preparation. Balance sometimes swings wildly, and systems expand slowly over updates. It demands caution, patience, and a willingness to learn from punishment. But that's why people love it. Stone Shard rewards intelligence, planning, and resilience, the qualities RPGs often pretend you need, but rarely enforce. If you want a game where survival is its own epic, this one leaves scars you'll remember. Before cinematic RPGs existed, Betrayal at Krondor was already delivering deep narrative structure, tactical combat, and a world that felt like an epic fantasy novel, because it literally was. Based on the Riftwar universe, the game uses storytelling as its anchor. Chapters unfold like book segments, filled with mystery, political plots, and character-driven drama. The role-playing depth is strong even by today's standards. Exploration is semi-open, side quests are meaningful, and progression feels grounded. Skills improve through use, and loot is always exciting because upgrades are impactful rather than constant throwaways. The first-person overworld and third-person combat blend together surprisingly well, creating a sense of real journey across a land full of lore. Combat isn't flashy, but it's tactical and punishing. Understanding positioning, stamina, and resource management is key, and rushing into fights unprepared is a mistake the game does not forgive. The writing has wit and clever puzzles woven into dialogue, making intelligence as important as strength. But age shows. The controls and UI can feel clunky, and the visuals are strictly 90s. New players may struggle with its slower pacing and unforgiving systems. Yet those who look past the exterior will find a foundational RPG masterpiece that inspired countless developers who followed. Betrayal at Krondor is one of the earliest examples of an RPG that believed in the power of storytelling as gameplay, not separate from it. It's not just historically important. It remains smart, rich, and rewarding today. While many modern RPGs brag about choice and immersion, the original Thief games chose and mastered one of those pillars decades ago. These are not power fantasies. You are alone, under-equipped, and fragile in a world ruled by corrupt nobles, techno-religious zealots, and horrors stalking beneath the city. You don't survive by killing. You survive by not being seen. Shadows become your best friend. Sound your deadliest enemy. And every guard drunken patrol route becomes a puzzle that rewards observation over aggression. What makes this stealth feel so ahead of its time is the physicality of the systems. Footsteps change volume based on flooring. Arrows extinguish torches and alter the geometry of shadow. Guards respond to sound and suspicion with real escalation instead of lazy AI scripts. Levels are sprawling, vertical, and packed with hidden paths that encourage being cunning over confrontation. You are not role-playing a roguelike class. Rather, a master thief whose personality colors every quip and every heist. The real magic though, lies in the atmosphere. Cities feel ancient and rotten. Cathedrals hide terrors the church won't speak of. And the cradle proves that pure horror doesn't need jump scares when the environment itself is haunted by memory. Even with low-poly visuals, these games ooze mood through meticulous sound design and environmental storytelling that remains unmatched. But be warned, these are old games. The movement and physics take getting used to, objectives can be vague, and failing a mission often means retrying from scratch. Combat feels intentionally awful because Garrett is not a warrior, and the lack of modern guidance will frustrate those expecting convenience. Yet for players who embrace tension and creativity, Thief 1 and 2 remain some of the most immersive first-person RPG lights ever developed. They trust you to be smart, patient, and sly, and repay you with heists that feel personal, dangerous, and unforgettable. This one is absolutely PC-exclusive weirdness at its finest. A blend of tactical combat, RPG progression, and creative puzzle design that revolves around trap-based warfare. Instead of just swinging swords and blasting spells, you're constantly setting up elaborate ambushes, pitfalls, immobilizers, explosive contraptions, crossfire layouts. The fun comes from watching enemies walk right into your perfectly orchestrated chaos. You control two protagonists whose skills complement each other in ways that encourage thinking several moves ahead. The knight is the frontline bruiser who manipulates enemy movement and creates openings, while the princess picks targets off with devastating precision. Winning isn't about overpowering foes. It's about being smarter, turning the battlefield itself into your weapon. The tone is surprisingly charming too. Whimsical fantasy with quirky banter and satire sprinkled throughout. It's lightweight on story compared to traditional CRPGs, but heavy on clever systems that reward experimentation and mastery. And as levels get harder, every trap placement starts to feel like a critical tactical decision. As for downsides, the production values are modest, the audience tiny, and the learning curve sharp enough to frustrate players who want fast-paced action. It's absolutely not for those who expect high-budget spectacle or cinematic presentation, but for tactical RPG fans who love problem-solving and creative combat. This is an unknown gem that deserves far more attention. It scratches an itch that almost nothing else on PC even tries to reach. Anachronox is one of the strangest, most ambitious RPGs ever released. A cult classic that mixes sci-fi mystery, slapstick humor, heartfelt drama, and JRPG-style exploration into something that still feels unique decades later. You play as a private detective so down on his luck that his luck has probably filed a restraining order. One overdue bill leads to another, and suddenly you're traveling across bizarre planets, trying to stop the universe from falling apart, mostly by accident. The game's writing is its soul. Characters are weird, flawed, and incredibly memorable, including a literal tiny planet who joins your party as a companion with attitude issues. Villains aren't just evil, they're hilariously petty. Even random NPCs feel alive with jokes, secrets, or existential crises. It's a world that takes itself seriously just enough, but never forgets that adventure should also be fun. Combat is turn-based with tactical movement, gadgets, and environmental quirks. It's not the deepest RPG system, but it has variety, creativity, and never overstays its welcome. Exploration feels like jumping between episodes of a cult sci-fi TV show. New tones, new puzzles, and new absurdity around every corner. Now, for the caveats. The game runs on the old Quake 2 engine, meaning characters move like stiff puppets and visuals are a pure relic of its time. Some systems feel clumsy, and pacing can be uneven. But what ultimately hurt this game the most was that the studio collapsed. The story ends on a cliffhanger that teases a sequel we'll never get. Yet, even unfinished, this game remains a masterpiece of personality. Few RPGs blend comedy and sincerity with such skill. If you crave something fresh, not another grimdark world or generic space war, Anachronox delivers the kind of charm that modern RPGs forgot how to write. It's a love letter to imagination itself. There's truly nothing else on this list, or possibly on Earth, quite like Space Funeral. It's an RPG that looks deliberately crude, as if drawn during a bizarre fever dream using MS Paint. And yet it's one of the most boldly creative and strangely unforgettable RPG experiences ever made. Everything feels like a parody of the genre, while simultaneously being a love letter to it. The world is grotesque, hilarious, unsettling, and weirdly melancholic, a place where absurdity and sincerity coexist without contradiction. You play as Philip, a depressed kid in pajamas, accompanied by a talking pile of meat named Leghorse. The journey takes you through a surreal nightmare of broken worlds, corpse cities, nihilistic jokes, and meta-commentary about the RPG medium itself. The combat is basic JRPG turn-based style, purposely mocking genre conventions, but even its jokes are layered. The struggle feels meaningful despite how bizarre everything is. Here's the surprise. Beneath the chaotic surface lies genuine emotional storytelling. Themes about broken universes, forgotten worlds, and the sorrow of discarded ideas hit harder than they have any right to. It's a reminder that creativity doesn't need budget, just imagination and a little madness. It's undeniably niche. Some players will bounce off the art immediately. Others will see the short length and wonder what the point is. But if you're the type who appreciates RPGs that challenge tradition, break rules on purpose, and dare to be stupidly brilliant, Space Funeral will stay with you forever. Not everyone will get it, but those who do, they'll never forget it. Following the success of Betrayal at Krondor, Return to Krondor tried something braver, shifting toward a more cinematic, focused, chapter-driven RPG, while still carrying forward the magic of Feist's world. Instead of a sprawling open journey, this sequel delivers a detective-style narrative full of assassins, cults, and royal conspiracies pulling strings behind the scenes. It's more compact, more digestible, and more character-driven, with voice acting and 3D visuals that at the time felt like a leap into the future. The game leans harder into story over freedom. You're guided from one intrigue to the next, uncovering schemes involving stolen artifacts and forbidden sorcery. Dialogue choices and investigation moments make you feel like a participant in a theater of political manipulation. And when fights do break out, the turn-based combat remains tactical. Positioning, spell synergy, and equipment still matter. But here's the caveat. The shift in design lost some of what made the original beloved. The world feels smaller, exploration is restricted, and party customization isn't nearly as deep as older fans expected. Some chapters drag, and certain systems feel overly simplified compared to the groundbreaking ambition of its predecessor. Yet if you judge it on its own goals rather than its legacy, Return to Krondor becomes a tightly written story RPG with memorable characters and a satisfying taste of classic fantasy intrigue. It's not just a footnote. It's a different flavor of an iconic world, worth experiencing for anyone who values narrative as the driving force behind adventure. Most RPGs empower you immediately. The Age of Decadence does the opposite. It hands you a ticket into a collapsing Roman-inspired empire and tells you to try not to die. There are no heroes here, only survivors and manipulators trying to squeeze advantage out of a society cannibalizing itself. Choices matter not because they change story branches, but because they determine whether you see any of the story at all. Every background, like the assassin, merchant, or drifter, even thief, unlocks completely different quest lines and entirely different playthroughs. Talkers can finish the game using persuasion and deceit alone, skipping combat entirely. Fighters dominate early encounters, but struggle in political situations where muscles mean nothing. The RPG philosophy is clear. Success is never guaranteed, and sometimes walking away is the smartest decision. Combat's turn-based tactics with zero mercy. One mistake and you're bleeding out in a back alley. The world doesn't scale to your level. Enemies are dangerous because that's the world's natural state. The writing reinforces that brutality. Every faction wants to use you, betray you, or bury your ambitions to prevent a threat to their power. There are no optimal paths, only different flavors of consequence. Flaws are intentional but real. The game lacks companions and emotional storytelling. It's a lonely experience built around roleplay over relationships. Visuals are plain. It can feel restrictive if you try to play like a traditional CRPG, where you talk to everyone and expect everything to bend to your build. But once you embrace its harshness, Age of Decadence becomes a masterclass in choice design. The replay value is enormous because failure leads to discovery and experimentation. It's one of the few RPGs where your character's identity is the primary mechanic, not a combat stat sheet. Before open-world RPGs truly existed, Darklands was already doing it, and doing it with historical realism sharper than most games today dare to attempt. Set in a gritty version of medieval Germany, superstition is real, saints grant miracles if you earn divine favor, and the devil lurks in the cracks of society. You don't play as a chosen hero. You assemble a group of flawed humans trying to survive a world filled with corruption, demonic forces, and powerful nobles who treat commoners as expendable. What hits hardest is how alive the world feels. Traveling between cities means dealing with robbers, religious inquisitors, and strange encounters that test both your morality and preparedness. Alchemy lets you craft potions that can turn fights instantly, if you've actually learned the formulas and afford the ingredients. You build reputation through deeds, not dialogue wheels, and cities remember what kind of people you are, honorable defenders or wanted criminals. Combat is real-time with pause, tactical in a brutal way. Poor planning leads to permanent injuries or party deaths that stick, forcing you to adapt rather than reload a save endlessly. The economy is harsh. A few bad decisions can leave you begging or turning to shady work like grave robbing. This makes danger feel authentic, not a level-scaled suggestion. This realism is paired with caveats. The UI feels ancient and takes commitment to understand. The visuals are minimal and dated. The game refuses to explain itself clearly. Reading the manual used to be a requirement, not a suggestion. It's not here to entertain short attention spans, yet get past the crust, and it becomes a simulation of survival in a hostile world. It paved the way for systems-driven RPG design long before people had vocabulary for emergent gameplay. For PC RPG historians and fans of harsh freedom, Darklands is a milestone that still has more imagination than many big-budget games released decades later. The Avernum games are Spiderweb Software's longest-running love letter to PC RPG freedom. They drop you into a massive underground world, a place where criminals, rebels, and dissidents are exiled to die under the rule of a tyrannical empire. Yet instead of building a prison, they accidentally created a country. Caves become cities, fungus becomes farmland, and desperation becomes revolution. You lead a party of exiles exploring caverns that feel endless. Lava lakes, ancient ruins, hidden societies, and secrets that reward careful eyes. There's a real sense of discovery. Side areas aren't filler. They're what make you powerful enough to fight back against the empire above. Skills allow for real role-play freedom. Stealth solutions, political negotiations, or simply brute forcing everything with raw magic. Combat is turn-based and old school, but strengthened by meaningful encounters, challenging fights, smart enemy types, and tactical positioning. Equipment progression feels great, especially when you finally get gear that lifts you from survivor to champion. The biggest barrier is cosmetic. The visuals are near the bottom of the industry. Even fans joke that spiderweb graphics are what remain after the budget died heroically. There's no cinematic flair. Writing and exploration carry everything. But here's the truth. Avernum offers more content and freedom than many RPGs with 10 times the budget. It's a world that rewards curiosity, celebrates weird storytelling, and constantly reminds you that exile can forge legends if you're stubborn enough to survive. If you can look past the surface and embrace the underground, this is gigantic, heartfelt, and unforgettable. Kenshi doesn't care who you think you are. It doesn't care if you've saved worlds in other games, or if you walked in expecting heroes welcome. It hands you to the desert, hungry, barefoot, and irrelevant, and tells you to survive. No quests or any chosen one prophecies. Just a harsh, simulated world full of warring factions, drug empires, slavers, cannibals, robot outcasts, and opportunities that don't feel like opportunities until you're strong enough to seize them. This is the purest form of player-driven storytelling. You choose whether to build a settlement, lead a mercenary band, become a smuggler, harvest organs for profit, or turn escaped slaves into an army that flips society upside down. Every skill levels up by actually doing the thing. No abstract XP bars. If you're bad at something, you'll suffer through it until you aren't. The most amazing part is that this game lets failure become progress. When a fight goes wrong, you might wake up in chains, but that gives you a new goal. Escape, recruit others, come back stronger, tear that entire faction to pieces. Weakness is temporary, and vengeance is a long game. But nothing comes easy. The UI is dense, the visuals janky, the AI chaotic, and the early hours can feel like fighting the world with a broken spoon. Yet once you embrace its systems like crafting, farming, base defense, as well as squad synergy, you unlock one of the most rewarding power curves in RPGs. Because every victory was carved out of a world that wanted you dead. Kenshi is a PC RPG in its raw, chaotic form. Unforgiving, surprising, and endlessly replayable. Rather than telling your story, it lets you build one through scars, struggle, and sheer will. If Gene Forge is spiderweb software at its most morally complex, Avedon is the studio turning that same sharp writing toward political power and loyalty tests. You serve the Farlanders as a hand of Avedon, an elite enforcer allowed to operate above the law to keep the realm from falling into chaos. Except, the more closely you examine the system you serve, the more cracks you start to see, and the question becomes, what if the threat isn't outside the fortress, but inside it? It's a party-based C RPG, more story-driven than the dev's other series. Each companion has strong opinions, personal quests, and loyalty that shifts as you make tough decisions. Some will challenge your authority. Some will question your ethics. Some will betray you if the dominoes fall a certain way. The political landscape is messy. Rivals plot coups, rebels fight for misunderstood freedoms, and everyone swears they're acting to prevent disaster. Combat is tactical and satisfying. Turn-based encounters that reward positioning and synergizing abilities between party members. Equipment upgrades and character builds give meaningful progression without drowning you in min-max overload. The trade-off is that the visual presentation is very simple, even compared to older C RPGs. Animations and sound design are functional rather than impressive, and players who expect cinematic choices may find the payoff more intellectual than emotional. But beneath the modest look is a cleverly constructed narrative machine. You're constantly weighing duty against conscience, authority against trust. Avedon asks whether safety is worth the brutality required to maintain it, and whether you're willing to keep your hands clean in a job built on threats and control. For those who love intrigue over fireworks, this is a brilliant, underrated gem of PC storytelling. There are survival RPGs, and then there is Neo Scavenger, a brilliantly hostile post-apocalyptic simulator where every choice is teeth. You wake up in a ruined future Michigan with almost nothing to your name. No memory, no weapons, not even shoes if the RNG wants to be cruel. From that moment on, everything matters. What you eat, what you wear, how you treat wounds, whether you sleep in shelter or risk the cold. Every turn is a tactical decision. Combat is brutal. A single infected cut or a badly timed fight leave you crippled or dead. Scavenging means weighing weight versus necessity. Do you bring food or tools? Can you risk one more trip to the city, knowing raiders might be watching? Survival isn't just mechanics, it's constant anxiety. What elevates it beyond typical survival gameplay is role-playing depth. Every character build changes how you approach the wasteland. A hacker can unlock pre-collapse tech, a strongman can bully bandits early, a medic can stave off infections long enough to live another day. Story events are multiple-choice mini-narratives with long-tail consequences. And behind everything lurks a bigger mystery about who you are and why people want you dead. Now, not everything is good. The UI is functional but rough. The difficulty curve can feel like a brick wall. The story progression isn't always obvious. The game expects self-direction. Visually, it's far from impressive. But the reward is that the immersion is so absolute that every win feels personal. When you finally craft a decent pair of boots, or find shelter for a storm, or outsmart a raider, it feels like you earned it through grit and ingenuity. Neo Scavenger is uncompromising, unforgiving, and absolutely worth mastering if you love RPGs that make survival feel real. A game where you don't just play a survivor, you fight to become one.